إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we beseech Him, and we seek refuge in Allah from the evil of ourselves. Whomsoever Allah guides, then none can misguide them. Whomsoever Allah leaves for misguidance or He misguides, then none can guide that person aright. I bear witness and I publicly testify that none has the right to be worshipped in truth but Allah, and that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is his slave and his messenger to proceed. Our lectures over the holidays, my respected brothers and sisters, have been related to practical issues and practical ideas that need to be addressed and understood by Muslims. Many of us, we come to the West or live in the West ambivalent, just having no idea or deep understanding of some of the ideas that propel, that move society. So we decided to talk about atheism, and we spoke for many weeks about atheism, because atheism is a call that we hear around the world today. Not just in the West, which are based upon atheism. It's an atheist, supposed to be an atheist country, should I say. The reason I say supposed to be atheist, sorry, I take it back. This country is seen as an atheist country, however, it is not an atheist country. What I meant to say, it is a secular country, but not necessarily an atheist country. The religion of the United Kingdom and Great Britain is Anglicanism, which is a form of Protestant Christianity. The state religion is Christianity. So it's not necessarily atheist. And there are many people who would like to turn this country into an atheist country where there is no state religion. But the church and religion is an integral part, a very important part of what we call British culture and British history. And so the concept of atheism, which we find floating around today, especially our young people who go to colleges and universities and never thought of this idea before, never had challenges, they start to be challenged and they find it hard to address some of the issues. So we spent a long time talking about it. And one of the things that we spent time talking about is the philosophy of science. Everything that we see today in terms of ideas, there's a philosopher that came before. So the West as we know it today was underpinned by philosophy. In the 1600s, the 1500s, the 1700s, we had philosophers, people debating and discussing ideas. And these ideas are very much alive today. One of the ideas is liberalism, which we're going to talk about today. And so what we decided is to talk about some of these ideas. For the last 2 weeks we talked about materialism in some detail, am I right? And I gave you the basic ideas of materialism. Materialism, as we said, is what? Can somebody help me? What's materialism? Why could stand for them? I know it's a Saturday afternoon. We've all been busy during the week, then busy on a Saturday, so our minds are a bit blank. What is materialism?
It's a love of materials.
Okay, excellent. Yes, we said materialism is the belief, an attitude towards material things, that things you can buy that can be sold. It can be actually things like a pen, or it can be services. And materialism, we explain how it's one of the most dominant ideas in society today. That we judge people not by who they are. So we've kind of slowly moved away from the idea of having a royal family that's the top of society. Then those further away from it are seen to be on the lower part of the ladder, where we have a royal family who are seen yet at the top of society, but we have other people that share that top as well, that pinnacle as well, yes? So today in Western, I wouldn't even say Western society, I would say Anglo-Saxon society, that is United Kingdom and America, and Northern America as it's called, that includes Canada. From those people at the top of the ladder are who? Who are the people that everybody wants to be like?
Rappers. Celebrities.
Celebrities, yeah? Rappers are celebrities, yeah? So celebrities are a very, very important part of our lives. One of the reasons why they're important because they make lots of money and what's around them makes money. You know, magazines. So you have, for example, the Black Panther, which was a comic. Now it's a film, so you can buy and sell the film. Then you have Wakanda Forever comic, another comic you can make money from. Then you have t-shirts, and you have stickers, and you have models, you know, to the end of it. These are ways of making money. And also ways of, how can I put it in a nice way, diverting people, really. Yeah, diverting people. If I'm busy worrying about the Black Panther film, or when the second film is coming out, and busy with a comic, and busy, you know, following the latest news about Black Panther, I'm a bit diverted, isn't it? I'm not focused on the things I need to focus on. And we find, many of us, if we don't have that diversion, what happens? We become discontented with life, isn't it? If I find myself poor, and I can't buy or get the things I need, either I'm going to go into criminal activity, or I just sit there becoming discontented, very upset about life, am I right? And so this acts as a kind of diversion. For us as Muslims, it's a diversion because we believe that we've been created to worship Allah. And we also believe that this material life is a test. Not a test of how much money you have or don't have, but it's a test of how many good deeds you do. Or should I say, quality good deeds you do. Not lots of good deeds, but quality good deeds. And following the pillars of Islam. And you can see many Muslim countries where they have lots of money, they're diverted. They're diverted away from, rather being pious people, some of the people who you never ever want to be in your life, very horrible people. As we saw, if you are on social media, there was a Kuwaiti sister, Allah guide us and guide her, who was complaining about maids getting a day off, having a Sunday off, and she was complaining about maids having a day off and complaining about them, you know, who does the work on that day, and maids running away. And you find those societies that have servants and maids and they run away, this is often because of abuse, that's why. Who wants to put up being beaten or working 18, 19 hours a day? Very few humans can work like that. What you find is, that's a form of slavery, under chattel slavery, which was only abolished around 150 years ago, which Africans lived. Slaves, African slaves, died very young. Died very young. In their 40s, very few reached their 50s. Why? Because you're working from dawn to dusk. You're a human, not a robot. So if you're working from dawn to dusk, 17 hours, 18 hours, non-stop, every day, all day, it's very hard for you to live. And so we find that those societies that become materialist, that materialism becomes important. So you judge people not by any abstract or religious ideas or morality, but what they have. You know, if you have a nice car, people respect you. If you have an old car, people don't respect you. This is a general thing. And what's interesting as well about materialism, how some of the richest people in our society are amongst some of the people who don't necessarily dress flashy. Have you ever seen Bill Gates? Does he dress flashy?
No.
No, he doesn't, does he? Bill Gates is such that you'll see him on Bedford High Street, you wouldn't even recognize him. Am I right? Well, you have some poor rapper who just had one record that went in the top 50, and how does he dress? Louis Vuitton, Gucci, he's all iced up. Yeah? You would imagine some of that Warren Buffett, one of the richest men on this planet, to dress like that. But you imagine Bill Gates to be iced up, isn't it? Got grills on, got like ice across his fingers, big, you know, not only does he have like, I forgot what they're called, like a knuckle duster that is all diamonds, but big rings on his fingers, you know, 24 karat gold and diamond grills in his mouth, and you know, all diamonds on his clothing, like Liberace, the famous pianist. You'd expect that, but they're not. They recognize value. And that's the interesting thing about Steve Jobs. While he was one of the richest people, he was one of the most smart people about his life and himself. Steve Jobs did not allow his children to use an iPad. Why? He recognized. Look at that. Look at us though. About myself. Look at us. The total opposite. And so, we spoke about materialism. We're doing this for us to look at certain ideas, to get an understanding of these ideas, and presenting what does Islam say about some of these ideas, for us to think and reflect about them. I think living in a democracy as we do, and having liberty which we do, we're able to look at ideas and critique them. Part of tolerance is to accept something and to reject it at the same time, isn't it? Yes? So if you live in a tolerant society, you can accept the ideas that are floating around in society, or you can say, no, I don't agree with that, isn't it? Same with freedom of speech. Today I was listening to somebody, they said that one of the most important things for them is freedom of speech. Well, is that really true? Is that really true?
No.
If you ultimately believe in freedom of speech, you must believe that ISIS have every right to say what they believe. Isn't it? Al-Qaeda have every right to say what they believe. The Ku Klux Klan do exercise that right to say whatever they believe. If you believe in freedom of speech, well, you should be able to say stuff. In reality, when we look at ideas like freedom of speech, we recognize that we don't believe ultimate freedom of speech. There are conditions to freedom of speech, yes? And these are ideas that we should look at. What is freedom of speech? What is liberty? So we get an understanding, and especially as we have our own understanding about life, our own worldview. Our own worldview. I saw on the internet, an Israeli newspaper, there was an African, well, he's black anyhow, I don't know if he's African or African American, definitely got Africa in his blood. He was a black Orthodox Jew, and he spoke about placing his children in schools in Israel. He wanted a school that reflected his worldview, how he saw the world. Being an Orthodox Jew, he believes in the Torah, and you should live by the Torah. Yeah? The Old Testament, he believed you should live by the Old Testament. And he found a school which reflected that. However, his kids experienced racism because of their black skin, of course. Yes? I don't think anybody's going to be surprised. Yeah? So, a worldview, we have our own worldview, which we are able to exercise. And so what we'd like to look at today is, for the moments that we have together, is another very important idea called liberalism. Liberalism is very important because today, I feel in the Muslim world, especially, we're reaching a stage that I think nobody really knows what's coming next. As you know, we're coming on the tail end of what was called the Arab Spring, in which a number of countries in the Middle East, through popular revolt, they changed their governments through demonstrations in the streets. What was the result of the Arab Spring? Can somebody help me?
Chaos.
Besides chaos, what happened?
Suffering.
No? Not just suffering, without a doubt, suffering. Without a doubt. Countries like Libya, which got rid of their ruler, it is anarchy, chaos, suffering. What else though? Okay, there's something else, very important. Should I give you a question to help you?
Yes.
What change happened with the Arab Spring?
The all peace with the Dunya now, rather than peace with
Something. What about the government? Is there any change?
They lose control.
No, there is no change.
There is no change. Yeah?
All of the chaos, there is no change.
When we talk about the Arab Spring, different people had different ideas of what they wanted, isn't it? Some organizations wanted power, which they got. Some organizations wanted to change the Arab world or the Muslim world into secular liberal democracies. Some people wanted to change their countries into theocratical states, that states governed by the Quran and the Sunnah. In reality, what did we get? Nothing. Did it change? There is no real radical change. In Tunisia, there is marginal change in terms of religion, but no radical change. In Egypt, is any change? No change. As the great scholar Ibn Taymiyyah said, may Allah have mercy upon him, that there's people who try to revolt and overthrow their ruler, there is never ever good gained from it. In fact, some of the gains some of those countries had, they have lost it. Like Libya. Libya had universal healthcare, universal education. What does it have now? It's a universal basket case. That's what it has. And I'm sorry to be harsh or to be cruel. And that's not just Libya. Syria as well. And people don't want to talk about it. Muslims don't want to talk about Syria. Those people who encourage the people to revolt, and I've said this many times, those people who encourage the people to revolt, the people did not have the capability or the ability or the capacity to change the ruler, are responsible for the situation today. What is happening in Syria today didn't come out of a vacuum. They just happen out of a vacuum. There are players involved, and I remember those players who encouraged the people from thousands of miles away in the safety to go out onto the streets. And what do we see today? This is something we never talk about. Do you hear people talking about that? No. No one talks about it. We accept the reality of Syria for what it is. But in every single incident, you must look at who is responsible and not responsible, isn't it? If there's a car accident, when the police come, well they used to before, not anymore, the crux of the matter, who is responsible? Who caused the accident? And so we see the same thing is not out of love for Bashar al-Assad and the Alawis, far from it. But a recognition that from revolt never comes any good, and we see it today. Just one statistic is enough. 24,000 children, Syrian children, have disappeared. Nobody knows where they are. That's a statistic that's more than enough to show you the evil of revolution. So anyhow, today we'd like to talk about liberty, about liberalism. And next week we're going to place it under the microscope of Islam. The word liberalism comes from the English word liberal. The word liberalism comes from the word that has the same root as liberal, which is in Greek liber. The word liberal means to be free. Simple. To be free. As a word, in the English language, it means to be free. However, liberalism is both a moral philosophy, an idea about human beings, how we live together, what is right and what is wrong. And it also is a political philosophy. This is very important to understand this, brothers, because today in the Arab world, countries like Saudi Arabia, when they say somebody is liberali, they're liberal, has a totally different meaning to when you talk about the United States of America, where people say, I'm a libertarian. Liberal, libertarian, same root. Okay? Very, very different roots. And so it's important to understand this definition. The whole idea of liberalism anchors, or is part of it, is to be free. Now us today, well, those of us who live or born in the West, we may find this really silly. Why would you talk about being free? Am I right? Because you brought up in a free society. When we say free, a society where you're able to do the things you want to do and live as you want to live. Am I right? But those of us who are born overseas, is that the case? No. Some of us come from countries where every single thing you did was watched. Some countries in the world, they have extensive networks of secret agents who watch the every move of everybody and what people say. It's a reality. I have lived in a country where if you have 10 people come into your house, it could be a problem for you. The secret services will come either while you are meeting or after and ask, why are you there? What's happening? Where this is a freedom that we have in this country. We have freedoms in this country, for example, where you can criticize the government or criticize ideas like Brexit. Am I right? If you're for Brexit or against Brexit, the issue is people accept, people have the right to be for or against it. Am I right? There are countries where if the government is pro-Brexit, everybody is pro-Brexit. And so liberalism, the idea of liberalism, is the idea of freedom. The idea of freedom. Many people come to the West for freedom. For example, political freedom. They believe in ideas like democracy, and maybe later on we'll talk about democracy. In their country, they can't exercise democracy. So they are forced to leave their countries to come to the West because of freedom. Also, when we talk about liberalism, the idea of liberalism as economics, to have a business. Have a business. In this country, and I always talk about the blessings that we have in the UK, we should never forget that. If I want to open a business tomorrow, can I do it? Yeah. Once I have the capital, I can secure myself some premises, buy the goods or bring in the services that I'm going to sell, off I go. Am I right? Some countries, no. You can't do that. Everything is controlled by either individuals or by the government. Even in terms of worship. We are free to worship as Muslims in this country, am I right? We have very little barricades to our practice from the government. The British government doesn't like to get itself involved in religious affairs, am I right? Most of the difficulties we face are from the people, not necessarily from the government. So you may walk down the street and somebody say, Muslim, go back to your own country. Yeah? I was walking down Edgware Road and some guy on a moped, as he was riding by, he said, oh, this is England. We've got little ears here, I can't tell you what I told him. Yes? So, this is not from the government itself, but from who? From the people. Some people are bigoted, but we're generally free. So if we talk about the idea of liberalism as a philosophy and idea, what does it mean? If we talk about liberalism as something economic, what does it mean? In order to look at these two questions, we need to go back in time, back in history. If we went back, say 500 years ago, who was ruling the country at that time? The monarchy, isn't it? Yes, the monarchy. As a side note, two things when you learn history in this country they don't tell you. One, the struggle of religion in this country is downplayed. Some of the most serious political events were over religion. For example, Guy Fawkes. Who was Guy Fawkes? Excellent. Why did Guy Fawkes try to blow up the House of Parliament? Why did they like the monarchy though? Because they weren't allowed to practice Roman Catholicism, their religion, isn't it? They weren't allowed to practice their religion. So they thought by killing the king and the parliament, then those people who came after would allow them to practice their religion. This is de-emphasizing in our history. The other thing is about Oliver Cromwell. Do you learn much about Oliver Cromwell in school? What did you learn about Oliver Cromwell? Tell me.
He got rid of the old monarchy. King Charles I.
Excellent. King Charles I was executed, gone. What did he do?
And then his type of religion was more simplistic.
Excellent. They were Puritans.
Yeah, that's right, Puritans.
Yeah.
Got rid of Protestant and Catholicism.
No, he was a Protestant.
Oh, yeah, and he was just like the way he practices religion was more simple, and simplistic. I don't think he celebrated Christmas.
Sometimes you hear people talking about reformism and Martin Luther, the very famous religious scholar, Protestant religious scholar, and they refer it to Islam. The reason being is that Martin Luther and the Protestants took away many of the quote-unquote bid'ah of the Catholics. Oliver Cromwell, when he came into power, he was a Protestant, so lots of the things you see in the Catholic Church, they got rid of it. For example, at the time of Oliver Cromwell, there was no Christmas. Could you imagine that in Britain, no Christmas? And many changes because of their belief of religion, and they were in power. So these things are not taught to us in school. But here comes my point. If we look historically in the West, it was ruled by despotic rulers. Despotic meaning people who had power in their hands. You, as a citizen, even the idea of a citizen, are we citizens in the United Kingdom?
Yeah.
I don't know. Your passport says, are you a citizen or a subject? That's a legitimate question, isn't it? In political philosophy, a subject and a citizen are two totally different people. In America, everybody understands as a citizen you have unalienable rights. You have rights that nobody can contest. Though for African Americans, they're contested every single day. Every day on Facebook, I'm seeing some of the most horrendous clips. I just was sent today an African American was in his house, minding his own business. A police officer came into his house thinking it was her house, and she shot him dead. It's become so bad on Facebook that I'm thinking maybe to come off Facebook, because that's all I get all day long. These type of crimes, young children being shot by police, women being shot by police, all these, this is what happens. However, with that, Americans believe as citizens you have rights that the government can't take away from you. We're going to talk about America very soon. But being a subject means you are subject. It is the monarchy that tell you what to do or what not to do. And this is the history of Europe. Europe used to have two groups of people. The monarchy and those people with them, and the serfs. Serfs, slaves. Serfs, slaves. So us, we would be serfs. That is, we would live on the land, king's land, or those people are part of the king's, his knights, or his family, his cousins, great cousins, who have land. So we would be farming the land, or providing services to farmers. So I may not farm potatoes, but I'm a blacksmith, for example. So I provide a service. And every year I would have to give either money or some of my produce, and in most cases both of them. Give money and give produce. And if I didn't do it, there were ramifications. I could be beaten, I could be put in prison. Many things could happen to me. And prison today is not like prison back in the 1500s. I was speaking to some students about prison. They said, yeah, in prison you got PlayStation, you got mobile phone. You know, they watch these videos people put on YouTube. You got internet. You know, some prisons, the food is better than our food. Because in prisons, the nutritional value of food is calculated. There's a nutritionist who makes sure the food is nutritionally good for the prisoners. Me and you, our food is according to what we can afford. If you're poor, chips every day. Isn't it? £2 bag of chips, one fish. There's 5 of you, there's fish, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The chips, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 handfuls, and that's what you eat. Not in prison. So, there were two groups of people. the monarchy, that's the king or the queen, and their people around them, all part of their system, and everybody else who was a serf. As a serf, or a slave, or a commoner, your life was irrelevant. If the king or one of his courtiers or her courtiers killed you, what would happen to the king or the courtier? Nothing. If they shot you, nothing would happen to them. As you can imagine, this type of system, in it, there was a grudge of those people who were the vast majority who had nothing against the small minority who had something. From the 1500s, you start to have people, writers and intellectuals, influenced by science and technology and the potential of science and technology. As Muslims, we don't have that problem with science and technology. But science and technology, as we've studied and talked about in the 1500s, 1600s, was considered to be heretical. That is, bid'ah. In the Muslim world, if I say to you, I believe that the world is flat and the shape of an egg, people may disagree with me, but would anything happen to me? Nothing would happen to me. If you believe that the world is round and like a sphere, would anything happen to you? No. These are not issues that we execute each other. However, in the 1600s and 1700s, yes. The very famous inventor, scientist Galileo Galilei, he put forward ideas which we believe today, and he had to repent from those ideas. He had to repent or he would have been executed as a heretic. So what you're starting to see is a development of ideas. Ideas around the idea of liberty, of freedom. In those days, human beings were seen as not being free. You are born into the world as a servant or a slave of your master. Your master may be the king or the queen, or you may be born as a slave, as an African slave here in the West, and that's your master. You're starting to see ideas develop that human beings are basically born to be free and to exercise their liberty, their freedom, to do what they will. And as we move towards the 16 and 1700s, we see some dramatic trend changes. One of them is the French Revolution. The French Revolution is a revolution in which those who had nothing revolted against those who had, which was the king. They executed the king and his consort Marie Antoinette, and they tried to establish a government based upon freedom, liberty and justice. Now here comes a side note. When they established the government based upon freedom, liberty and justice, am I right? That's the slogan for France. Liberty, freedom and justice, am I right? This was not extended to the people of Haiti. At the same time, there was Haiti, which was what? Was a slave colony of the French. The whole idea of freedom, liberty and justice wasn't extended to their slaves. They tried to, when the Haitians revolted, got rid of the French rulers, they tried to take back Haiti. They lost. But what they were successful in doing is make Haiti pay money back to them for their freedom. Look at that. Look at that. And we see here a contradiction. So you have, in these times when there was just the kings and the rulers and the poor people, up comes the French Revolution, showing that there could be a different order. We can have societies based upon liberty. That is, people have freedom to be free to live their lives as they see fit. Also, something else happened around the 1700s. Can someone tell me what it was? Very important. What happened in the 1700s? Don't tell me history back home is as bad as history over here.
America gets freedom.
Excellent. What you have is the ideas of the French Revolution spreading around the world. The whole idea of freedom, especially amongst those people of what they call the middle classes, the doctors, the merchants, the bankers. These ideas find a lot of, I'm trying to think, not the word currency, they're ideas that express what the dreams and aspirations of the bankers of this class of people. Why? Because if you have a state which there is a king who has ultimate authority, as a banker, who do you report back to? The king and his government, isn't it? Are you free to sell and buy and do the things you want to do? No, you're not free. And so amongst this class of people, develop a number of intellectuals. In Britain, people like Hobbes and Locke, developing ideas. What is the natural state? The government. What's the natural type of government? Are we born to be part of the servitude of the king? Or are we born in a free state as free beings? These are some of the ideas that are before the French Revolution and during the French Revolution. Then along comes America. As you know, the Americans initially fought against the British. Why? Because of taxation. There's a man, I forgot his name now, is it Otis something? He said, taxation without representation is tyranny. You pay taxes, but you have no political representation, is evil. Wow. In doing my reading for this lecture, I'm boiling lots of ideas down, I'm trying to make them simple. But you have ideas that are